Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
Brothers and sisters, as a proud parliamentary representative of St. Mark, as a proud NNPite, I must say Sister Akima is a member of the new National Party. And as a Grenadian, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure for me to present to you Mrs. Akima Paul Lambert, daughter of the soil, fully accomplished and an asset to women and an asset to our country. Welcome, Akima.
Thank you, Dr. Modest. My heart is full. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bola, Honorable Prime Minister Mitchell, mentor and supporter, Honorable Prime Minister Motley, again, one of my personal sheroes. Honorable Minister Bowen, Honorable Kate Mitchell, members of Parliament, members of the executive, friends, supporters, all, it is a privilege and an honor to be here today. When I was a little girl, I used to play a game with a skipping rope. We would sing all the letters of the alphabet and skip until we landed on the initial of the person we wanted to marry. I never landed on an S, but don't tell my husband this. A series of questions would then follow about the marriage, the dress, the cake, the number of children. But one of the most important questions you wanted to get right was this one: what house will she have? The choices being upstairs, downstairs, kitchen, coop. Nobody wanted the coop. The house we lived in then was an important social symbol, even then to us as children. So permit me to start with a short story about the house I grew up in. It was built by my great-grandfather almost 70 years ago on a small square of land in Diamond Street, Victoria. It sat on 3 pillars. The 4th makeshift pillar was a big stone. There were 2 rooms. There was no veranda. The kitchen, the toilet was outside. I am told he was a gifted joiner. He spent years improving other people's property, and his vision for his house was great. But he passed away in 1948 before his vision could be realized. Over time, improvements were made to the house by his children and grandchildren in turn. The house was made larger. The kitchen, the toilet was moved from outside to inside. But some years later, my mother was still dissatisfied with where we were. There had been improvements, but our needs were changing. She decided to build our house bigger and better. She placed it in more resilient concrete. She enlarged the room. She changed the roof. She put in a veranda. There is an important postscript. At the time when my mother did this work, we simply occupied the house. We do not live in it today. She did it, however, as caretaker, as custodian. She recognized that she had a duty to make it the best it could be, not just for her immediate benefit, but for the benefit of generations to come. Friends, Grenadians, all, we are the caretakers and custodians of the house of Grenada. We have a supreme responsibility as citizens of this country to do our best by it. Today, I did not want to speak as Akima the lawyer, no Latin, no big words. Nor do I speak as a politician. We have both the Caribbean Prime Minister and the Caribbean President in our midst. I won't say which is which. Today, in my grandfather's memory, I wanted to address you on how we build the house. I will do so in 3 steps: the site visit, the plan, and the build. Step 1, any builder worth his salt would advise a site visit. We need to assess the extent of the work that is required. For the house of Grenada, it is crucial to do the same. It is good to assess, evaluate whether the groundwork that has been laid is adequate for the future. An old principal once said to me, "This country is pregnant with problems." I asked him, and I smiled, "Show me a country that isn't." What I do know is that many of the problems we face are those that are common to small island states like ours: limited institutional capacity, vulnerability to economic shocks and natural shocks. We saw what Ivan did in one lick. And a lack of economies of scale. We sometimes cannot compete on size. I tend to think, as in my personal life, that it is not the number and the extent of the problems that matter. It is the strength and creativity of the solutions and the drive to apply them. It is easy to take the sides of politics over policy. But if we look at facts over fallacy, we can safely say that the groundwork has been laid. We can boast a stable democratic government for a period of over 40 years. This is not to be taken for granted, given our nickname, Grenada Island of Conflict, and the state of the world today. We are one of the few small island states that are successfully transitioning from an agricultural economy to a mixed blue economy, where agriculture, tourism, manufacturing are coexisting. Our crime rate stands as one of the lowest in the Caribbean. And financially, Grenada's performance against that of the ECCU relative to growth is better than its peers at the end of 2021 compared to 2008 to 2012. Our debt to GDP ratio is now below the ECCU average. Despite this, my friends, we can never exist in a state of ambivalence or laissez-faire. We cannot rely on, as the day, live the day, as Bubla, one of our Calypsonians, sang. All of us Grenadians, and I would say particularly those that serve us, the Kate Lewises, the Prime Minister Mitchells, want what we all want, that our country is dynamic, that it is part of an upward movement of consistent evolution, that it continues to be infused with fresh ideas, youthful enthusiasm, and that we are all seeking more stability, more delivery, more development, more opportunity, more success. So what happens next? We move to step 2, choosing the architect, agreeing the plan. Many years ago, we used to do what I like to call patchwork house building. 2 sheets are galvanized here and there. A kitchen you tack on as an afterthought, 2-piece of ply. Due to the competitiveness of the world economy, we are long past the era of patchwork development when it relates to our country. The shape of our future directly depends on our choice of architect and our choice of plan. And when the terrain ahead is challenging, we need a chief architect on whom we can rely and who has demonstrated that that person has the qualities to do the job. It is also prudent to ensure continuity, that that person is surrounded by a balanced, well-resourced team composed of both youth and experience. But the most useful and important barometer by which I would judge the architect is by the vision and the audacity of his or her ambition, the master plan. I share some thoughts, if I may, with your indulgence, of what I would expect to see of this plan. Overall, we need a plan that ensures that Grenada not only survives, but thrives. The plan for Grenada must be future-proof, leveraging our said disadvantage, or small size, or small economy into advantage. Borrowing Honorable Mayor Motley's phrase, it must be a plan that is dressed in Caribbean cultural confidence, one that highlights the things we are good at and ensures that they can be serious economic drivers now and in the future. I sometimes tell this story. I once visited Bali, Indonesia, and I spent $150 on what was described as a riverside immersion and a special antioxidant tea tasting ceremony. What I received was nothing more than a traditional bush bath. And what was I served? A cup of lemongrass tea, a cup of sorrel tea, a cup of bay leaf, a cup of sorrel, a cup of ginger. It said it all. Everything they had monetized and marketed for $150 were all things we could do, but were not at home. I would therefore expect a plan that is creative, that looks at all sectors of our economy holistically, and builds on the current work that is being done in our food and hospitality sectors. I would expect a plan premised on sustainability, ensuring that we are poised to tap into the global wellness industry, now worth $4.2 trillion. Our plan must continue to attract the Royaltons and the Radissons in the south, but we must place our focus to the north, to Duquesne and Davie, and the east, to Telescope, and see value in our fresh sea breeze, or spring water, or mountain hikes, or waterfalls, or sulfur springs. We must incentivize smaller, sustainable, homegrown Grenadian businesses. And now that we have done a lot of groundwork with training and preparing our young people for the world of work, as Kate Lewis just said, we need to continue to incentivize our young people into becoming entrepreneurs and owners, especially of the facilities that we have in this country. We need a plan that sparks a renaissance in manufacturing, but this time around at the premium end of the markets, where economies of scale don't matter so much. Go figure. There's a popular luxury hand wash that sells for 150 EC dollars, and the primary ingredients are cocoa and coconut oil. Similarly, if I can, for quality, pay £2 more for dates from Morocco and £1 more from salt in a region called Maldon in England, I can certainly spend $2 more per pound for hand-picked Birch Grove nutmegs or wild-farmed Westerhall lambi. I want to see a plan that prioritizes renewable energy, geothermal, and solar. I want to see public-private partnerships in this regard for managing our infrastructure and our health. And once we have this master plan, it's only then that we can move to step 3, the build. So let's talk about the build. My husband and I did some work to our house in London in 2020, and we had what we call a rogue builder, a scamp. I would sometimes go past the house at midday and no one would be there. Their lunch break would last for 2 hours. They arrived late, they left early. They were meant to finish the work by Christmas, and by then they were only a quarter way in. I fired that team of builders, and you know what I did? I hired a Grenadian, James Edwards, Boyo from Sotters, to be precise. James was an exemplary worker. He arrived at 7 a.m. when the work was meant to start at 8. He led by example. No one was idle on the job. Tasks were allocated early and with precision. Soca only during the lunch breaks. He got rid of anyone not pulling their weight. And as a result, he had an excellent team that were able to work just like he did when he wasn't around. The work was finished well ahead of the new schedule. The importance of good builders to a house building project cannot be overstated. One can have the best architect, the best plan, the most expensive materials. But if the builders are not fit for purpose, if they're not industrious, if they have no motivation, no initiative, we will always end up with work that is behind the time. We are Grenada's builders, my friends. I would like us to reclaim the art of house building, and I would like us to do so in our own tradition. Years ago, and even now, when a person without much decided to build a house, there would be a maroon. It would be a project for the community. A pot would go down, the rum would be brought in, everybody would come together and chip in. Whether it be casting the foundation, putting up a roof, it was community service for the individual. We need desperately to reclaim this approach. It is essential that we move away from the eat-a food mentality and take what you can get at all cost, waiting for others to do what we can do for ourselves. In this, our foremen, our appointed representatives, must also do their part. Like James, like Boyo, they have a responsibility to lead from the front by example, to do the work that is entrusted to them with honesty and integrity, to carry out their roles responsibly, diligently, to earn our trust by keeping their promises and managing without fear or favor. I have a special message for two groups of builders in this house who are dear to my heart and who I see as crucial in any future plans to build Grenada. First, my friends and family in the diaspora who might be watching. I call them Grenadians not presently home because, as you know, all of us want to come home. Your role is crucial given the extent of our ambition. Over the years, you have all supported Grenada's economy with the remittances, the barrels, the boxes, the donations. The effect is tremendous, and we are grateful. But we need to dial up. During the last COVID wave, I received a message from Dr. Lizelle Joseph, a Grenadian-born space scientist living in Massachusetts. Akima, what are we doing? Grenada, we need to help. This simple message transformed into a Mayday operation for Grenada. A group of us were able to work under the direction of Dr. Joseph and with the Office of Diaspora Affairs to enlist community groups, to contact Grenadians abroad who worked in procurement and planning, to source items for the hospital, to make sure donations were not duplicated, to track the urgency of certain items, to ensure that there was an accountability issue, that there was a chain of custody, and to organize community outreach. There is no reason why we cannot harness the power of the diaspora in a similar way for the future, for other projects in this country. I've been working myself to get an initiative off the ground, Send Skills Home, where we can encourage our Grenadians who live in the diaspora to donate not just money and barrels and boxes, but their time, whether it be through a child therapist in Canada delivering weekly counseling service to local schools, a nurse in New York donating a few days of service to the General Hospital whilst on vacation, or an IT specialist in Germany offering security system upgrades to government systems. If we can leverage this approach for the benefit of our country, our institutional capacity will increase tenfold. The second group of builders I wanted to address are the ones that are most significant at this time to our country's development. Our young people. Many of them may not know me, although I consider myself still young. I grew up in Victoria until I was 18 years old. I knew what it is like, I know what it is like to grow up in a rural community. I know what it is like to grow up in a single-parent home. I know what it is like to attend a government school with limited resources and then to transfer to a tongue school with a wrong accent. I never had, in the words of Voice, the brands and the bling and the expensive things. We didn't even have cable until I was 13 years old. Victoria used to be called Grand Pova, great poverty. But I always say, when I speak about growing up, I grew up rich. Because my home, my school, my parish were all rich in community, rich in support, and rich in expectation. And when my potential was spotted, I was taken under the wing of many. I was integrated into church, community groups, Calypso. I was encouraged into environmental activism. My very first laptop was donated by a St. Mark community group in New York. This planted the seed of service and giving back in me. I was expected to work hard and to grab opportunities, and I did. I wanted to leave our young people with the message that you can still do a lot to build your country, to build this house, regardless of your family circumstance, your economic situation, your upbringing, your education, your current challenges. You are the ones you have been waiting for. You are the ones who will play the most critical part in this country's construction effort. I know many of you face financial challenges. The jobs you're doing now may not be what you had in mind when you left school or college or university. I have been there. 2 years into my island scholarship, Grenada suffered Hurricane Ivan. And you know what happened? Ivan. This meant significant delays to my payments for accommodation and tuition. My family helped where they could, but a job in a call center was my lifeline. It taught me respect for any type of honest work that I still bear today. Some of you may be fearful of taking opportunities handed to you, routes to entrepreneurship when you like the predictability of a job. You may be offered training and opportunities in distant parts of the world, China, Mexico, Morocco, as they take you out of your comfort zone. Grasp it. I always speak of the pursuit of my master's degree in French comparative law in Paris, with the hubris of having only A-level French. When I started off, I couldn't understand a thing for many months. I began with failing grades, and after months of beating the books, I graduated eventually with honors. This taught me the importance of diligence. Many of you may be suffering knockbacks and challenges that test your resilience. You cannot give up. I've had so many setbacks in my career. I listen to the successes, and sometimes I do not even recognize them. I chose to migrate to a country obsessed with race, class, and speech. My skin color, my working class background, my Caribbean accent was sometimes a disadvantage. In business meetings with clients, it was sometimes assumed I was a secretary. In spite of my excellent results from Cambridge and the LSE, I was sometimes treated as if I wasn't smart enough and a token diversity hire. I always had to prove that I was good enough. Today, I'm lucky to have the thriving career that I have, to be the first black partner in the London office of my firm that has existed. I sometimes don't like saying that because I think it tells you a lot about the UK that, after 100 years, I'm still the first black partner in the London office of my firm, to be ranked in prestigious legal directories. But this did not happen overnight. It took more than 15 years of diligence and resilience. I say this to say it may be the same for you. Do not give up. And because of my experience, I've lived my life so far very aware of the opportunities that this country, my school, my communities poured into me. And I've always been so grateful. I therefore find my reward and my purpose in service of it, whether it be establishing Calypso Tents when I was 18, through to forming Grenada Youths and Students Association in London, to instituting my academic awards, and now serving as Grenada's ambassador to the Holy See. I've received so much gain from my service. My advice to you is that wherever you are in life, start serving, start building now. On every report card I've received, it has always said, Akima talks too much. I am keen not to receive this assessment today, although I may have already. So I conclude briefly. First with a line from my favorite poet, Derek Walcott, the giant. He said, "I bear my house inside me everywhere, and I feel the hum of wood and brick becoming home." Now that I have explained, in my view, how we build a house, the most important question in my mind is, how do we turn the house of Grenada into a home? My friends, in my view, what will define us and determine whether we build a home will be our shared values and our principles and our willingness to pass them from generation to generation. Our honesty, our integrity, our tolerance, our kindness, and in this election season, I emphasize our unity. Our efforts to always aspire and advance, ever conscious of God. It is only if we have these, we would have built the house, the home of Grenada, worth having. Thank you.
Let's thank our sister.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.